What's happening in the canine industry? For all the latest news, views, and expert opinions, stay right here for the Canine Paradigm. You'll hear from industry leaders, experts, doyens of the industry, learned colleagues, movers and shakers, and the odd randy guest. Get the latest insights and expert advice from both here and abroad from the people in the know. Now, here are your hosts, Glenn Cook and Pat Stewart. And I'm Lofty Fulton, and I'm out of here.
Glenda?
Yes.
We have to do a new ad.
We do.
It's a solemn time. Our long-time sponsor of the show, George Kittredge,
Yes.
very, very sadly passed away. And we formerly used to advertise for him his Rowdy Hound boxes.
We did.
So we don't actually know what's happened with Rowdy Hound boxes. You know anything about that?
I looked at the website. It said that they're recalibrating since their founder and boss has passed. But nonetheless, I think that you and I want to honour the memory of George Kittredge anyway. He was a friend to both of us, a hell of a good guy, and he supported us almost immediately. He was on board through and through, and I just don't want any of us to forget George. He was a terrific human being.
So we intend to continue to advertise Rowdy Hound, even though we don't know what's going on with them.
Yep.
In the hopes that they keep going, and that can be a bit of George's legacy that we're able to continue to promote.
I hope so.
In checking it out, we had a look to see, because we're not real good with the sponsorship. So we had a look to see who's actually paying for sponsorship. And we have a list of people to tell you that we support. And the first is our sugar mama, Barbara de Groot.
She's been with us from the start as well. Barbara's been an absolute staple in our...
She's a gem.
She is a gem.
She has a business.
She does. From the Heart Dog Training.
From the Heart Dog Training.
Yeah.
You can check it out. But she supports us as much and more than anybody ever has. So we appreciate you very much, Barbara. Another person who's supported us from the start.
The Einzelwiener.
Einzelwiener.
The Bullfed.
The Bullfed.
Yep.
It's where I get all my stuff.
Yeah.
It is, truly. It's where I get all my dog gear. If I need something, Jason's my first point of call. I don't use his shit website. He has a website. It's dog shit. I just message him directly. You guys probably should use his shit website, but I don't.
Yeah, because you don't want to message him directly and get his grumpy ire of the day.
Yeah, but do it. Get all your dog stuff from Jason. He's got everything you need. He's got all the shit that you need to train a dog for realty.
Everybody who comes to seminars and looks at meals and asks me meals questions, ask Jason.
Yeah.
Jason can point you in the right direction for getting the meal that's best suited for you.
I really like his leashes. I'm a big fan of his leash pack. That's why I sort of convinced him to do it. But anyway, get your stuff from Einzelwiener.
Yep.
Do you know who has a fantastic website and ships internationally?
My wife?
Your wife,
Yeah.
Canine Pharmaceuticals.
I couldn't imagine her not having a good website, how much of a perfectionist she is.
Well, the products are amazing. My dog merely being alive is a walking testimonial to that. My dog, who I've retired numerous times and has come out of retirement when I've managed to get his body back to healthy. And a big part of that is related to Canine Pharmaceuticals. So check it out, everybody.
I could say so many nice and biased things about Canine Pharmaceuticals and my wife, but what I will say is ignore me. Just look at testimonials. The testimonials speak for themselves. That's where the field trials are working. What makes Narelle's day, and mine as well, is when people are emailing in and sending messages of, well, primarily people have had no hope in the past because just everything that they were trying wasn't working, and now it is. And that is the testament that something is actually really working. And the other thing which I will add, one of the things that Narelle's told me in the past is dogs are incapable of understanding the placebo effect.
Oh, that's a good point.
So you can fake it on a human, but you can't fake it on a dog.
I never thought about that before. That's actually a really good point.
Well, my wife's actually a very smart person.
There you go.
So she's told me that humans are subject to the placebo effect where dogs are not. So it either works or it doesn't on dogs.
There you go. That makes total sense.
Yep.
There's one other person who puts a fair amount of work into this show.
Yeah.
It's me.
Yeah. Funny about that.
And I have a digital product that you can buy. If you go to my website, seriousdogbusiness.com, right now I've got 2 courses available to you. The Overview, which is a small course where you could learn how I teach.
Yep.
But the other one is the Wave Tops, which is a bigger course. It's everything I know about dog training. Well, it's not everything. It's a lot of what I know about dog training.
Yeah,
Check it
terrific.
out.
Yeah.
$500 dues. That's all it's going to cost you.
I recommend it when people are saying, what do I do? How do I get in the industry? I recommend them to your course.
Oh, wonderful. Thanks,
Yeah.
sir. All right, on with the show. Welcome back to the Canine Paradigm. I'm your host, Pat Stewart. I'm joined by my co-host, Glenn Cook. Hello, sir.
Hello, friend. Hello, friends.
How are you?
I'm very well. We've had some good guests on lately, which has been fantastic. It's nice to have a bit of a chat with people in industry, see what they're doing, see what they're thinking. see where trends are going, what people are finding interesting, what people are finding troubling. I know we both enjoy having a chat with people, but it's just you and me today, which is also good.
It's just us.
Yeah, just us.
Let's get into it. Let's talk about stuff we're going to talk about. You wanted to mention about the dangerous dog handling courses and people advising counsel. It's a good time to do that because just yesterday, our friend Greg Trednick, is that how I pronounce it?
Yep.
Trednick?
Yep. Greg Treddy. Yep.
Yeah, so Greg invited me this year to speak at the Australian Institute of Local Government Rangers Conference. And I think you did that a couple of years ago, didn't you? You did it like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I did it
and
a couple of years ago.
Jazz did it the year before.
Yeah, Andrew Clark's done it.
Really cool.
You've done it. I've done it. Jazz has done it. It's great that Greg is involved in that and he's actually sourcing a variety of good people to come in and talk on behalf of what's happening in dog behaviour and training out in the real world. Mm-hmm. And also to encourage a relationship with local council. So when rangers are out there doing their job, it's a horrendously difficult job, which people don't give enough credence to what council rangers actually do. You know, a lot of times they get marred as the bad guy because they have to go around and pick up dogs or have difficult conversations with people and their dogs, which I actually do a lot of work with the opposite end. But that's not what it's limited to on their actual job description. They don't just deal with problem people's dogs and problem people. They actually have to run around and deal with a whole range of local government issues as well because they're rangers. They have to go out and, investigate livestock issues depending on whether they're rural, semi-rural, metropolitan, what they've actually got to work on. So it can be a very tiresome and stressful job. It can be one of those jobs where you're meeting a lot of community problematic people. I recall a conversation you and I had a while ago in regard to vets and the type of person that you're actually meeting on a regular basis or the type of thing that you're seeing on a regular basis. And I remember, if I recall correctly, we were talking at the time about how vets see a lot of problems with tools because they see the problems with tools that, like that's what happens when they come in, they're treating that sort of issue. So they develop a sensitivity around it. And I guess when I've spoken to council rangers in the past, that's been one of the similar concerns that they've had is the type of people I meet because that's the job I'm called out to. So once again, they develop a sensitivity to that type of person. Like they're going out to meet a person who is thumbing their nose at the normal lawful thing that people follow. These people basically saying, well, fuck you, I'm not doing that. I'm doing whatever I want to do. I'm dumping asbestos. I'm letting my dog roam the streets and biting people or chasing kids down the road or whatever it may be. So then they go around and meet these people and of course they've got a front and they're all agitated and there's argy-bargy and they want to fight and do all these sort of things. But there's also the counter of that as well, where there's good people out there who it's been a one-off mistake. Their dog has made a mistake. The dog has done something which is socially inappropriate. The council is called to intervene to come in and make good on what's actually gone wrong. And then sometimes you'll get a reasonable person and you get reasonable people like Greg. There's plenty of good, reasonable people like Greg that go out and talk to people and discuss what's happened and try and talk to people and mitigate the situation. However, there's also people that are grouchy and they've had enough and they're sick of people and they've had a string of problematic people all week. So when they go around there, the front that they come in with is very hostile, very uncaring. They're not there to problem solve. They're there in quite a strange capacity to what the person expected. So therefore, it's a very traumatic experience for what the person is going through in a dangerous dog situation. I'm going to leap into this. It was a good segue for me to sort of talk about the topic that I wanted to talk about because as people know and as I've advertised, I deal with a lot of dangerous dogs. That's what I'm doing on a regular basis every week. I just had a lady drive 7 hours from up north to come down and see me. They're just not satisfied with the people in their local area. They just don't know what they're talking about. And this is one of the specific points that I wanted to raise because we have done an entire episode on this before. We have talked about it. However, there's a lot of people who have joined us that are new and may not have caught up with that episode or heard about it yet. So every now and then it's good to sort of refresh over a few of these topics. It's good to have them as talking points, as educational portals for the general public so they can understand the dilemma and also perhaps rethink it if they were going to leap headfirst into this without prior education themselves. But what I'm finding, and it's not about trying to limit competition because there's friends of mine or people that I know and people that I respect in the community that do wonderful jobs when they're doing assessments. Like I've read other people's assessments before when they've gone and seen someone else first and then they've come back to me and I've said, oh, this is actually pretty good. So I never downplay good work. Like if anyone's doing good work or giving good advice and I happen to see it, I always tell them, hey, this is actually good. What the person's written here is very well thought out and very well pre-planned. However, the issue is there's not many of those people around. And the people that are just sort of thinking, well, I'll give it a go. How hard can it be? Then they take on the case and they don't really know anything about local laws. They don't really know anything about how and why the dog was declared. And they don't really understand dog behavior all that well themselves. The advice that they give them is just perilous. It's so polarizing in comparison to what they actually need at the time, because some of these cases are not just sort of resting at a local laws level. They're actually elevating into court cases where solicitors need to be called in, where it's actually going to go before a magistrate or higher. So the bedrock of what people are working on and the development of the case or what needs to be discussed or what needs to be advised to the clients in some situations is so flimsy, they just don't realize they've given up information they shouldn't have given.
Let's just reframe this for our listeners because we're kind of in the weeds, but we need to go a little bit higher level.
Yeah, sure.
You know, around the world, things are going to be a little bit different. So let's just sort of reframe that here in New South Wales, in the state that we're in Australia, the controls on your dog are mostly coming from your local government, right? Like there's general state legislation about what's allowed with a dog, and that is breeding and that kind of stuff. But then you register your dog with your local council, like your municipality, I suppose is the right word. And if something goes wrong with your dog, i.e. the dog attacks someone or something, or is just a pain in the ass to the community, the person that you're actually going to be engaging with over that is the ranger from your local municipality. And they're the ones that can essentially sanction or impose stricter rules onto you and your dog than what is the norm by registering that dog as either menacing or dangerous. Am I correct so far on that?
Primarily, there is an escalation that goes from nuisance, menacing, all the way up to dangerous dog.
What would find someone in that? Like, how does someone find themselves beginning that process to go into that funnel of going down the nuisance, menacing, dangerous?
It's kind of like us. Let's say, for example, traffic law. So you could be speeding at one bracket where you'll find the low end of a penalty for an infringement. Then you could be into the second bracket where you could get a heavier fine and you can start losing, and you are losing demerit points in New South Wales, where there's a demerit point system where suddenly you find yourself losing 1 demerit point, 3 demerit points, and you've got 12 throughout the year. So I'm going to get to the dangerous dog side in a minute, but I'm just using it as a comparison in how we find ourselves in trouble as it escalates through the penal system of infringements. Then you can go into suspension of your license. Then you can go into loss of license, car impounded, and then you can find yourself that you're incarcerated. So you go to jail.
The penalty escalates along with the infraction.
Yes.
So in terms of dogs, what sort of thing would we see that a nuisance dog, like within the framework of like, that dog is a nuisance, let's label it nuisance. What kind of stuff is that dog doing? Is that a dog that's escaping regularly and just being a pain in the ass in the community, but it hasn't actually damaged anyone? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, primarily. So let's say, for example, you've got a dog running around the streets and it's barking at people and it hasn't done anything serious yet. The ranger will come round. It's up for the ranger community at that local council to determine the dog's been a pain in the ass in the community and you need to be slapped with something because you just don't seem to be a responsible enough owner. And in some cases, some of the infractions that people are facing are deserved. They're people that keep letting their dog get out or they're just not being responsible people. And in some cases, it's grossly unfair because it's the first time the dog has had an incident. And there were situations where I've gone around and spoken to people and done the consult and I've watched if we're fortunate enough to have like a property camera or something like that, you watch the footage of the property camera and it's somebody else that's not involved with the family that have left the gate open or allowed the dog to get out of their property. And in some cases, even when they've rebutted that sort of situation, the local council hasn't taken that into consideration, said, yeah, that's a disappointing thing. It's not such a matter of community safety. It's a matter that somebody let your dog out and your dog didn't know what to do once it left the property. So now it's become an issue for the community. In those situations, that's when I look at the situation, I say, yes, that's unfair. That's not appropriate, I don't believe, the way that you were treated and the way the dog was labelled based on somebody else's negligence. However, there have been times where I've gone around and watched footage or seen the accounts and there's multiples of incidents, and I've just said to him, you don't really have a defence.
So that people know what we're talking about, let's just clarify those three buckets as a accurate, true labelling of totally it's fair, this is within the framework of a nuisance dog is the type of dog that for whatever reason maybe has gotten out of the property and just been a headache in the community, but it hasn't damaged anybody or anything. That's about right. And is that's usually something that needs to happen a couple of times, isn't it? Or can you get a nuisance dog order from one event? If it were, say, like, use the example, the dog gets out of the property and maybe it's because a kid left the gate open or a tradie was in and out and the dog escaped, or maybe it just truly is just straight negligence on the part of the owner, whatever it is. The dog runs down the street and fence fights for an extended period with the neighbor dog. Doesn't do any damage. Nobody's actually hurt, but the dog is scary and it's a pain in the ass to the community. Is that enough to then say, yep, that's a nuisance dog?
Yeah. The powers that local laws actually have in as far as local ranges and so forth, that is quite intense. It can be a one-off event, and if the ranger deems it as, yes, this dog's a problem and I don't like the way it behaved, and in some cases it might be I don't like the way you behaved either, they can slap you with a nuisance dog order.
And so what happens then? Like, what are the restrictions on that dog? They've said, okay, Pat, your dog is a nuisance. What actually happens to me at that point?
A nuisance dog is generally defined as a dog whose behaviour causes disturbances or problems within a community. This can include excessive noise, like persistent barking, aggressive behaviour towards people or other animals, or causing damage to property. Local ordinance often define what constitutes a nuisance dog, and complaints are typically handled by local authorities. So for a detailed breakdown, you could have excessive noise. It could be a dog that's just barking, howling or whining quite a lot. That's fairly thin labeled. So I have had a few people that have reached out to me over those sort of things. It would have to be like an ongoing neighbourhood dispute and a huge problem for that process to be labelled. So aggressive behaviours that pose a threat to people or other animals, such as biting, chasing or threatening. Now that's where the escalation can really start taking place, when you're starting to talking about people getting chased down the street and so forth. And that's where you generally find that it's bypassed nuisance and gone into menacing and dangerous when those sort of things happen. Roaming freely, dogs that are not properly contained and frequently wander onto other people's property. Property damage, repeatedly damaging property outside the owner's premises. Defecating on other properties.
So like if your dog just goes out and craps on the neighbour's yard every morning, you could be done for nuisance.
Absolutely, yeah. If you look at the title of it, you are being a nuisance on those sort of situations. Yeah, sure. And as I said before, mate, there's been people that have come to me before for a defense, and I've looked at it and I've said, you are being a problem. Like, you are the problem, and you have to identify that. Just because people come to me and they think I'm going to pay Glenn some money and I'm going to get away with this, it doesn't mean they don't get a lecture on me about community safety as well. So that's why I'd like to encourage people to understand is, don't come to me and think you're just going to get away with this scot-free and I'm just going to turn a blind eye to you being the problem. If you're the problem person in this scenario, I'm telling you that you're the problem person.
If a dog is a nuisance dog, it's only committed small things, it's damaged property, it's just been a pain in the ass. What happens to the person? Is there a fine? Is there a change in the way the dog has to be managed beyond what would be normal? What's the reality of receiving that order?
There's often fines, and there's also further fines for non-compliance and so forth. So with a nuisance dog owner, that may mean that you have to cease the behaviour, make sure that the dog is walked on lead when it's off property, so no off lead and no free roaming around. And, like if the dog is escaping, it needs to be addressed. If the dog is howling and whining, it needs to be addressed. Because you're at the first stage of the problem, the council will come around and they'll say, okay, this is the complaint. This is the community safety issue that you've breached. This is how your neighbours are concerned about the problem, or this is how we are as local government are concerned about the problem. This is what you need to do about it. Usually what you'll find, a nuisance dog order, it can be revoked after a period of time, and it's usually a bond. Most of the orders can be revoked over a period of time, providing that time served and lesson learned and person is responsible and they've stepped up and done something about it. You'll find that that is where most local authorities and councils are reasonable with this sort of situation. But yes, this is the first stage. You're on the radar now. You're known to council. So they know who you are. They know about your dog problem. They're sensitive to the complaint that local community has or the public safety issue that you're posing with your dog.
A nuisance dog order essentially says you are not keeping this dog in the way that is required for a normal person, and they start to define those things to you, like things you should be doing anyway, right? Like your dog shouldn't be getting out, it shouldn't be barking nonstop, it shouldn't be damaging property. So you're not required then to do anything beyond what everybody else is doing anyway. This is just you being reminded or specifically told individually, you are not adequately caring for this dog. The dog is not being kept correctly. You must rise to the standard of what everybody else is already doing anyway, unless there's something specific that comes with the order.
There is a point that I want to put here just to talk about an extreme case that I dealt with probably about 10 years ago now when I was newer in New South Wales, and I went to court over one of these issues. I was before a magistrate. I was there as a subject matter expert. The prosecutor was speaking to me about this sort of situation. He was asking me about my relevance in the case and who I was and why I happened to be there. So I was answering all these questions. He said to me, "Mr. Cook, do you know that the person that you're here representing today, prior to them receiving an order, the council went round and spoke to them on 10 other occasions about their dog's behaviour, and they had withheld that information from me. They didn't tell me any of that." What I find, and the reason I brought that up, and I thought that should be relevant in this part of the conversation, people are often not truthful about what's actually happened on the behalf of local law. So sometimes they paint council rangers out as being the bad guys. And I've spoken to Greg and other people about this in the past where they've had horror stories about these sort of people, and they go around there and they're trying to be very reasonable. They're trying to say, I'm local law. I'm here to help. I understand that.
Community safety.
Yeah, it's community safety. Like your dog is getting out, your dog is screaming. I pulled up in the car and I can hear your dog from 2 blocks away. There is something that needs to be done about it. So here's a list of recommendations. Here's people that you can go to. Here's solutions to the problem. You've got problems, I've got solutions. That's what we're here to do. Some of these people are very not the bad guy that they're being painted out to be. They're very helpful and they're very reasonable people, but you get these bloody vermin out in society who think they're above the law, or they don't care, or they're just focused on their other life problems and they really don't care about their neighborhood or whatever it is. At the end of that was a court case that went pear-shaped. And I turned to the person, I said, "Why didn't you tell me any of that? Why would you feel that withholding that information was beneficial?" And they said, "Oh, I just didn't think it was relevant."
Yeah.
And the lawyer representing the case said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, Glenn. They didn't tell me that as well."
Yeah. So then the next bracket that someone can go into is a menacing dog order. What's that like? What's going to get you into that bracket, and what does that actually look like?
A menacing dog in legal terms typically refers to a dog that has displayed unreasonable aggression, attacked persons or animals without causing serious injury. It's the serious injury side of it, or behaved in a way that causes fear. Local authorities can declare a menacing dog based on its behaviour, even if it hasn't caused serious injury. Unreasonable aggression, this includes behaviours like lunging, growling, or barking aggressively at people or other animals. Attacks without serious injury. If the dog attacks but doesn't cause severe harm, it might be declared menacing. A dog that causes fear in other people or animals through its actions can also be declared menacing. Local councils have the authority to declare a dog menacing based on its behaviour, and this declaration often comes with specific requirements for the owner, such as muzzling and leashing the dog in public. While both menacing and dangerous dogs pose risk, dangerous dogs have usually inflicted serious injury. So the definition between both of them is one, it's less serious. So in that sort of situation, let's define the two of them now, because now we're sort of getting into the territory of very like for like, but with the difference being serious injury. And the other difference is a menacing dog doesn't have to have an escape-proof run built in the back of the house, which the dog is primarily under house arrest. They can leave the property, but they have to be fully muzzled and they have to wear a dangerous dog collar, which is visible. They've got to have a leash no bigger than 1.8 meters, I believe it is. You have to notify council if you're changing address. You have to notify council if you're going on holidays with the dog. You have to notify council if the dog is going to a boarding facility. There is a lot of things that happen in the dangerous dog category. Same thing with a menacing dog. You still have to notify council of any shift or move or anything that's happening, but the dog can free roam in the back of the house still. If the dog comes out on the property, collar must be worn, same sort of leash. The dog can't be off leash anywhere in general public. Dog still has to be muzzled. But the category shift, where it changes, is one is considered less severe and the other one is more severe. So usually the escalation happens immediately if the dog attacks a human. So if the dog attacks a human, in those sort of situations, it usually escalates straight away to dangerous dog. Like they go in and say, bang, you're going straight to the top of the tree.
Mm-hmm.
Again, in some of those classifications, or some of them have been classifying the difference between assault and defense. You know, like in the same sort of situation that a person may find themselves in, like where they've before a magistrate being accused of assault, where in legal terms it's often looked at or can be looked at like, no, I didn't assault the person, I defended myself. And in some cases, like I've looked at footage before and I've gone back and said, yeah, well, we can argue this. There's a point of contention here.
So a dog has either escaped its property or maybe it happens on leash, who knows. The dog has been involved in some sort of like violent altercation. If nobody is seriously hurt and it's just a scary situation, that's the kind of thing that's likely to result in a menacing dog order. And at that point, you can get specific instructions that would be tailored to you and that dog because of the event that happened. But if your dog did seriously injure someone, now likely if it seriously injured a person, we're probably looking at like a destruction act on that, right? But if it kills a cat or another dog or something like that, or just bites a person significantly, like broken skin, that kind of thing, then that's where we're looking at a dangerous dog order. Now, imagine that you were a person who just has this dog and you're in the wrong, you acknowledge it, something went wrong in your life and you just decide to wear it. They say, hey, your dog is dangerous. And you go, yeah, sorry about that, I comply. You then have to register that dog as dangerous and that's more expensive to you. The dog has to be kept in an escape-proof run, essentially a kennel, right? It can't be just loose in your yard. It's got to have a roof. It's got to go into the ground. It's got to be like a thing from which the dog cannot escape. And anytime you want to leave the property with that dog, it has to be on leash and wearing a muzzle. It's never allowed to be off leash. So it significantly fucks up the life of the dog. Certainly in some circumstances, that's the only way that a certain dog could be kept, for sure, right? Like, and there's plenty of people who actually keep their dog like that by their own free will because they know they've got a dangerous dog, right? Like there's plenty of responsible dog owners who are like, oh, fuck, I've got this killer on my hands that for whatever reason, it's gone this way, but I love the dog and I'm going to keep it myself, and they keep it under those conditions without being ordered to. So what you were wanting to talk about is where you come in on there's been an incident, council have either done their investigation or whatever, they've labeled the dog potentially and the person has wore it, but they want to get it removed. And because they've done the training, they've rectified the problem, they think that they've rehabilitated their dog to where the dog doesn't need to be labeled dangerous or menacing anymore. Or you come in at the point where someone's like, hey, I think my dog's being misrepresented here. I think actually my dog was just responding to a threat. My dog was being threatened. Like he just turned out to be a better fighter. And certainly like we see that, like because some dog breeds are the ultimate fighter, but the personality of the dog doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to start the fight. And we see that like, a lot of our blockheads, right? Like you might get a reactive border collie or something like that, that barks at, lunges at, and because the blockhead dog isn't moving, the border collie goes into like its prey sequence or whatever and maybe nips it. And then the blockhead just demolishes the border collie because it's just got so much more capacity to do that, right? It's more capable of doing it. So it wasn't necessarily the instigator. It was just the better fighter who certainly killed or completely damaged the other dog and is therefore labeled dangerous. So maybe that's the kind of person that comes to you and then says, hey, Glenn, can you help me legally in this situation? First of all, you then would assess the dog, right? And say, okay, this dog is who I believe him to be. He was just pushed to the limit that day. He's not actually a dangerous dog. Or you might say to the people like, no, man, your dog's dangerous. Like you actually do need to keep that dog under the conditions under which they've told you. But that might get to a point where you go, no, we can train this dog. Or someone comes to you, they said like, my dog, yeah, we did all the things. He's guilty as charged. However, we feel like he's been rehabilitated or we want your help rehabilitating him. And that's where you come in, right?
For all of the above. The last group of people, which was a glut of people that I've just been seeing, they're at the stage where they want the order revoked or downgraded.
Right.
There was a young lady that came to see me and she said, look, I know my dog's still a problem, but I want it downgraded from a dangerous dog to a menacing dog simply because I just don't want to cage my dog in the backyard anymore and I want to start working on things in the progress to try and get this removed altogether with your help. And I've said, great, okay, let's talk about that. Let's have a look at the dog. Let's have a look at your knowledge and understanding of what's happened. How long has this been in effect for? What have you done in that time? Have there been any other recorded incidences? Have council been involved? Primarily what I'm asking of them, have you been an example of all the things that you should have done that the council have asked you for, or have you been a threat to the community safety still? The things that they're concerned with, is that where you still stand? In some cases where I've seen it where people are reoffending, I've said, look, you don't need to see me, you need to see a lawyer. Like if you want to work on this, because there's nothing that you're really going to get from me at this point in time that's going to be of any help to you. There's nothing that I can actually do because you're still doing the things that council have asked you not to do. So I do meet, and I have met very unreasonable people before that are still in the category of why they had the declaration placed on their dog in the first place. Mate, it's amazing that there are still people that walk the earth that are still completely clueless to the fact that they're the problem. They just don't understand it at all. They still think that they have rights, they do have rights. Let me be clear. They still have rights, but they're the bad guy in the story and they just don't understand it.
Yeah, the other side of rights is the responsibilities that enable you to have those rights and give others the same rights. I think that's what people often forget in society, right? Like you've got plenty of rights, but those rights carry responsibilities. You have to withhold the rights of others, and that's your responsibility to maintain your own rights.
To replay something that I spoke about before, I don't regularly get these type of people. Like it's not a common occurrence because most people I get are actually reasonable and they're at a templated state where they're ready for knowledge to be poured in, which is great.
Imagine my dog, let's make it a real scenario. My dog runs out on the street, sees a cat, just shreds it. It's my fault. I've got no leash on, whatever. I was just taking my dog out to toilet. It was my fuck up. I wear it. The council say, hey, your dog killed that cat. You had it out on the street. That's dangerous dog. I go, yeah, okay, cool. Fair enough. I keep the dog under those conditions. And then a year later, I say like, hey, I don't want this on my dog. I feel like I fucked up. I've learned my lesson. Then I can get in touch with you and say, hey, Glenn, this is the situation I'm in. I'm not going to do this again. You come around, check out my dog, go, yeah, your dog's not a headache. It's just that you shouldn't have done those things. You can then write me an assessment of the dog, right? And then you as a trainer, knowing the act very well, knowing dogs very well, and reading specifically the order and why it was put on, then you could write me like a witness statement or something like that, or like expert witness if we go to court or whatever in my appeals process to say, yeah, like he recognizes he made a mistake. The dog is only dangerous to cats. It's not a dangerous dog. If it's on leash, it's not going to be a problem. He just has to put the leash on. He intends to do that and I can potentially work through it. But what if I've got a dog that is a big headache, right? Like the dog, it's not just like he saw a cat, like he's dog aggressive and he's labeled dangerous. How do I train that dog? What provisions are there and how do you do that? Like if you come around to my house and I've built the kennel, my dog's got the muzzle, the whole lot. How do we go out in public and like desensitize, counter condition a dog to make it less dangerous whilst it has that dangerous dog order on it? Like, are we having to get the Baskerville muzzle and feed through the muzzle, or are we allowed, is there provisions to attend training centers and stuff like that in order to rehabilitate the dog and change the way that it thinks and feels?
Yeah, you can definitely attend training. Like you can go and seek a professional. Generally in those sort of scenarios, which you've just painted out there, if I can't be the person for them, like it's just not feasible and it's not in my local area. Like I said, there was a young lady that came down. She drove 7 hours to come and do a consult with me. And there's people that are too far away from me to logistically come and do a training session. I will find a suitable professional in their area. I'll go through my Rolodex of trainers. And for example, if they were in the city area, I'd say, go and see Pat. Like he's got a studio where you can go and do some work with him and he can take you on some street walks around, you know, like his local area, and you can start doing some work with him. And then I will make contact with the person and say, hey, I'm sending this client to you. This is the issue. The dog has been declared dangerous. These are some of the priority areas that you need to work on. This is the restrictions that the dog has on it. This is roughly the capability of the handler. at this point in time, these are the areas that I really need you to focus on and improve because this is what we're going to try and do. I have no powers to remove anything. All I can do is make recommendations. That's the only thing that I can do. So I don't give people any false hope when they come and see me. I literally say you are at the mercy of local laws at the moment, or if we go to court, you're at the mercy of the magistrate or the judge in that case. Primarily, my role is to prepare them, to help them improve the situation or to look at it and to speak on their behalf, as you indicated before. And that's what I do on a regular basis is I break it down into its finite categories so I can then advise the client and say, from an outsider's perspective or from a lawful perspective, this is how it will probably be seen. So we play it out a few different ways. And this is why I said before, it's very important that they're completely vulnerable and they tell me everything that's happened. And I explain this to them. It's not that I want to pry into your life. I don't need to know all the nitty gritty about your personal life, but I do need to know about all the things that have happened with this dog and what's happened since, because every time I get surprises, this is where it comes up in court if it does go to court, or this is where the counsel will come back to me and saying, hey, Glenn, thanks for your letter, but did you know that 20 other times we've had an incident with this person and dog where they've done this. Most of the counsels are I have a relationship with them. It's not me trying to attack the counsel. In some situations, counsel will ring me and ask me advice on other situations with dogs and so forth. So it's not that I'm sitting in a relationship where it's Glenn Cook versus the counsels. It's a situation where what we're trying to determine is, has this dog redeemed itself, and is the person willing to upskill their knowledge and handling skills in order to safely manage this dog and ensure the public that this dog is now safe to walk the streets without the muzzle on or left in a backyard, and knowing that the dog can't escape the property or somebody's not going to unwittingly open the gate. So it might be as simple as saying to people, make sure you've got a gate that can't be opened by anybody else that enters the property. Once that's all done, and once we collect all the evidence and all the data, there might be times where I have to go around and visit people's homes and actually do a walkthrough with their backyard and say, okay, that's unsafe. Your gates are completely inadequate. There was a guy that came and saw me and his dog jumped over the fence twice. And I said, all right, this is what you need to do in this area. I can see why the dog was able to jump over the fence. This is how you need to rectify this situation. This is how you need to improve your fence. There's people in your area, tradespeople that I know that can actually fix these problems. I don't get commission from it. They just say, there's 3 or 4 people, you contact them, go for your life. They can help you fix the problem. What I'm trying to do is trying to be a one-stop solution to resolving the issue or downgrading the issue or removing it entirely. But my primary focus is this person redeemable? Like, do they actually get it?
Yeah.
That's my biggest concern. Is this person sincere? Are they remorseful that the situation's happened? Have they reached out to the other person that was involved in this? Just to go on this, there was a situation where the people stopped speaking to each other. And I said, did you try? Like, did you buy them flowers as an apology and to say, hey, this stinks that your cat got killed by my dog. I am so utterly sorry about this. You've been a good neighbor for the last 10 years, et cetera, et cetera. I just want to reach out to you and say, I get it. I understand why you're so distressed about this. And they said, no, I haven't. That person went and bought the neighbor flowers and they started talking again. And then the person understood it from their perspective. I came around and had a chat with the neighbor. We talked about what we were working on. They saw that the person really was sincerely sorry about what happened. They were trying to redeem themselves and they were trying to work on the issue. And we were able to downgrade the issue with the dog simply because we mended the issue with the neighbor. And then the neighbor went and spoke to the council on their behalf and said, I can see that they're trying to do things. I was very angry for a period of time. And it was great because we not only fixed a problem with their dog, but we also healed a rift between a neighborhood dispute just simply by starting it off by an olive branch. And that's what people don't realize sometimes is the feud remains with you because you haven't really done anything about it. You haven't had any true redemption in that sort of situation. You've just looked at it like, oh yeah, my dog killed your cat, but then you went and called the council on me. So you're the bad guy. Whereas if your dog hadn't gone out and killed, like their cat, as I've explained in other episodes we've done, when I talked about, a little girl's rabbits being killed. And for me, that was the first time I ever saw the true impact of somebody losing something beloved to them when I saw the look in that little girl's face and the complete despair she had that the neighborhood dog came around and mauled her 2 rabbits to death. And she found them in the cage and had to deal with that sort of situation. Not only did she lose her pets, but her last image of her pets was that they were completely disfigured. And that was horrific. Now, I didn't get that at the time. I just simply said to the neighbor, just buy some rabbits, just go to the shop and buy some rabbits. But you can't bypass the damage at that time when you have that level of affection for something that you cared for.
So your job then is like step one, someone gets in touch with you, you vet them and you go, okay, is this the person who I actually want to work with and represent? Like, do they realize the significance of what's happened? Do they accept blame? Or are they saying like, no, there's mitigating circumstances? Like, are they a person you want to help is step one. Then step two is looking and saying like, well, how's this dog go? Like, is the dog who they say it is? Is it trainable? Because, as we know, some dogs are not rehabilitatable, right? Like some dogs are, they are going to do the same thing first chance they get. And some people, we've all met them as trainers who have truly dangerous dogs or have a dog that, has a screw loose and that we would say, hey, this is a dangerous dog. This is not a dog that can be rehabilitated. I think this dog is unwell. I think maybe you could medicate it, but like there's nothing that we can do here to fix this aggression issue. This is like a true problem or whatever. We've encountered those dogs. So then you might say to people like, no, I'm not going to help you because I think your dog is dangerous and it should remain enclosed this way. But then you might get to someone and you go like, no, like I can see right now your dog is dangerous. I will help you in order to reduce that. And then we can, if you put these things into place, then we can go to council and ask for the reduction. In that way, you are essentially like the third party external intermediary between them and council so that they don't have to be going to council all the time saying, hey, what do I do? What do I do? And bringing themselves on the radar and then becoming an even more known person to council. What suits them and likely gets their dog, if the dog is suitable and they've done the things, but what likely gets their dog off that list is that they go to council and say, hey, look, here's all the work I have done. Here's a statement from my trainer saying the dog is no longer a threat. Here is all the changes to my lifestyle in accordance with what you've said is the problem. Now, with your support, they can then try and have that lifted. And you're only going to do that for people that's appropriate for. Am I right so far on that? That's the process?
Yeah, primarily.
But the skill sets to enable you to do that, the ability to work with people, 40 years training dangerous dogs and actually being able to either make that assessment and be accurate in what you say about a dog and give people the right advice, help, mentoring, coaching, whatever, to actually help rehabilitate their dog. And then a deep understanding of the act and council and the people that you go to and the way that these things play out and the legal proceedings and how the actual legal framework goes around this. They're the specialist skill sets that you have to do that. So I think like that's what I wanted to sort of tease out is like, this isn't something you can just do, right? Like you can't just like because I have people come to me, I've had plenty of it and it doesn't happen so much anymore because you're my immediate referral. But even when I was still in the army and like my first sort of, very early days of coming out of being in the army, I would get asked to do this kind of shit. I'd be like, I don't know how to do that. Like, I don't know the legal framework. I know how to do the dog part of it. Like, I can train a dog really good, but I have no fucking idea what this legal framework works like and who are the people to talk and what your chances are. I don't know any of that. That's an extremely specialist skill that only comes from immersing yourself in that for a very long period of time.
You're exactly right. One of the points where I try and chastise people who just give it a go is that they haven't done any good grounding work in this before. Like they have no real institutional knowledge of what's going on with a dog when it reaches that scenario and how to mitigate the scenario when counsel are actually involved. And they don't even know how to talk to counsel. They don't know how to write a report properly. And in some of the situations where I've looked at other people's work, where it's just been deeply troubling what they've actually advised, the work that they're actually doing with the dog, it's all counterintuitive to what needs to be done. I've had conversations with counsel where they rang me up and said, have you seen the footage from this other trainers working with your client? Have you actually seen that? And I said, yes, I have. And that's what I'm piecing back together. They've come to me because they've gone to Google Doctor and they've asked Google Doctor, hey, I think this is what's wrong with me. And Google Doctor's come back with some far-fetched, unbelievable issue. And then they've gone to the specialist and said, hey, I think that I've got this, and this. And they've said, well, what's your source? And I said, oh, well, Google Doctor told me. Whereas what I'm offering is, like you said, I'm offering 35 years experience where I've spent a large portion of my life in my apprenticeship teaching dogs how to bite people and also teaching dogs how to have control in those sort of situations and have a deep understanding of what fear is and how to mitigate and, research through these areas and give the client a step-by-step process of what they need to do in order to become a better handler to ensure public safety. So primarily what I'm trying to do is show the person everything that went wrong and what they need to do to rectify the steps or have the rectifying steps to show not only council, but the larger community, the neighborhood around them, that I'm not going to be a problem to you anymore. Like, you have the right to walk safely past my house without being in a situation where my dog is going to try and kill one of your pets or something like that. People shouldn't have to live in fear of neighborhoods of having a local crazy next door to them with a problematic dog that they've got rickety fences and, feral children running around and they don't know, like what's going to happen on a day-to-day basis. So the neighborhood lives in a completely fearful situation. And that is the advice that I've given to people sometimes. I've said to them, you are the problem. You're the neighborhood issue. Some people have taken it very well and some people have taken it not so well, where it's been confronting for them to hear that information. I've had people get up and walk out before and said, no thanks. And I've said, I agree. We're not a good match. We're not a good fit. It's not going to work. And it's just ended on the session there. It's not my intention to drive away a client. It's not my intention to not help somebody. It's my intention to give everybody as much help and advice as I possibly can. It's my intention to try and rehabilitate them and their dog into the community. As I said, I will fight for you. I'll advocate for you, but you've got to meet me halfway. You've got to be the type of reasonable person that I can see that you will go about creating shift and you will create the dynamic where council will then look at you in a completely different light, where they formerly looked at you as being part of the community problem. Now they'll look at you and say, I don't need to worry about this person anymore because they're off the radar. They're attending training. They're attending all of the issues that we were concerned about. That's no longer a problem for us anymore because they're doing the due diligence and the hard work that we would expect out of somebody who owns a dog, like a reasonable community person, like the millions and millions of other people around the community who don't have problems with their dogs and cats because they go to a specialist or a professional or a trainer or they get advice or they speak to somebody who is reasonable and points them in the right direction, says, hey, if you want to keep a cat, do this. Hey, if you want to keep snakes, this is what you need to do. Hey, if you're going to have a dog, this is the step-by-step process in which you will have a loving, fulfilled, great relationship with your dog without it impacting anybody else. Because everybody that's listening to this, I assume, friends, if you're still out there, everybody that's listening to this, you're dog-loving people. Like, your fulfillment comes from time with dogs. We've explained before that there are people out there who are polar opposites of that. They hate dogs. They think people that love dogs are crazy fuckers. You're part of the problem. Just having a dog in the neighborhood is something that they find deplorable. Unfortunately, you will have those people, and there have been situations where there have been reports to council and council have intervened primarily because they're trying to silence that problem person, the Mrs. Mangle that lives next door, who's looking at her curtain all the time and just finding something wrong. And they're trying to make that person go away from them because they never stop ringing the council up. And, you might be talking about a person who's battling some pretty intense mental illness. And sometimes unfairly, the person with the dog gets targeted because this person will ring up council. The dog barked. It barked twice today, barked, 3 times yesterday. I saw it outside and it was pissing on the power pole. And then it came over to my side of the road and then it did something. So after a period of time, and there have been examples like this where people say, oh, come on, man, that's far-fetched. There have been situations where I've been able to deeply look into that and realize, oh, you're subject to somebody who's an emotionally disturbed person on the other side of the road that's causing a hell of a rift for the whole neighborhood. The way I work that out is sometimes I'll just go door knocking and talk to the neighbors. Like I'll say to the neighbors on each side of the house, is this person a problem? Have they been a problem to you? No, Glenn, they've been fine. They're perfect neighbors. We know the dog. We like the dog. In actual fact, they're great people. We get along with them very well. The lady across the street, she's the problem. you get that, mate. And it's unfortunate that those things happen and you're subject to the town crazy. And I say that lightly because, I'm sympathetic to people who are struggling with their mental health, of course. But that doesn't make it easy to live next to that person either, where everybody that you're living around is awesome. You have a great community, but you've just got that one person who's just a sinkhole in the neighborhood. Their dopamine hit is ringing the council. And that's a very, very unfortunate situation. But that's an outlier. That's not the common scenario. The common scenario is it's somebody who has behaved recklessly or allowed a situation to manifest that they weren't properly in control of, and they needed to be more in control of that situation. Mistakes happen. People do things wrong. Shit happens. I'm aware of that. But when it gets to the nitty-gritty of it, the investigation that I do around it is primarily you have to take responsibility here, and that's what you have to prove to the people who are now looking into you and the problem.
The point of where we've gone with all this is it's like not an ad for you and your services, because the amount of, like, with our worldwide audience, the amount of people actually in your location that could employ you to do this is small. And similarly, you've got more work than you actually probably want in this space anyway. What we're trying to do is show people that you can't just go to your random dog trainer friend. This is a very specific type of work. And even if absolutely, I put myself into this category, I for sure have the capacity to help you with your dog in this situation. I don't have the legal understanding. Like, it's not my area of expertise. I've never invested into this. It's not something that I've tried to do. So for me, it's an easy referral out immediately. And in fact, when I had a family member in this situation, it told her to call you straight away, you and Andrew Clark. Like, I can do the dog part, but the legal situation is totally outside of my hands. That has to go to somebody who actually knows it, because I'm not going to risk, certainly with my own family member, I was like, I'm not fucking risking fucking this up. Right. Yeah. And this going badly. And the thing is, I think this is like one of those situations like representing yourself in court. You don't know what fucking damage you could do to yourself when you get the wrong person around. Like, you could easily, through, negligence of the law, you could very easily turn what was going to be your nuisance dog order into a dangerous dog order, or even a destruction order, by saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. And so I think that's where you're going with this, right? Is that you're saying, that's how you do this job. And if you need this job done by someone, it needs to be done by someone with the level of expertise across that full spectrum of understanding the situation and the people, the dog and the training, as well as the legal framework and how to approach that. And I think one of the most important things that you really did harp on, and I want to say it out loud as well, is like, you as a trainer, your integrity is what's on show as the witness in the box, right? Like, none of us are getting paid by Big Pharma where we can just afford to blow it, torch our career by lying or leaving out information. You're not getting paid $10 million to be an expert witness, so you'll say whatever the fuck you want and get away with it. Like, you're just charging an hourly rate for this shit, so you're just telling the truth. Like, it's straight up your assessment as an actual expert in that space. That's super important, because if you tank your credibility for some dickhead and then you look like an idiot, as you've not intentionally done, but has been done to you, then that reduces your capacity to help others, right? Like, that's a significant black mark against your name within that council of Glenn's the guy that came and represented these idiots that were actually a massive problem, trying to get them off. Doesn't he realize this? And you didn't know that. So that's why, you've got to have all that information, but you can't misrepresent the situation, because then that, for the dogs that really have been rehabilitated, or they got a bad shake of the stick, they really were labeled unfairly because of mitigating circumstances that you've been able to prove, you need your integrity in check. You need to be in good standing with the courts, with the local council, with all these people to know, hey, I'm just a truth teller in this. I don't have a side. These people are paying me to investigate, but my investigation has found them to not be at fault. Or my investigation is that they're terrible. And don't change things for them. You have to be honest, no matter which way it goes, right?
Mate, I've been employed by council before in the opposite side, where council have employed me to go around and investigate a dog in the same way that I would investigate it for a handler or for an owner of a dog, I should say. And the situation has evolved where it's gone to court, and I've had to be a subject matter expert with the council to say, yes, this person is inappropriately managing this dog in the situation. And the person came up to me outside of the court when it was all over and said, hey, man, why did you do that? And I said, because it's true, buddy. But even though I've said all that, I don't dislike you or I don't have any feelings towards you. I can actually help you if you want. Like if you want to become a client of mine, and the council would only be too happy with that. Like I can actually take you and your dog and make you a far better version of who you are currently, because right now you're in deep trouble and the well is only opening up under your feet. And I said, we can reduce all that right now. And the guy became a client of mine. He was very appreciative of spending time with me. And, you know, like he used to introduce me as, hey, this is the guy that got me in trouble in the court, but now he's fixing all my problems for me, which we both found very funny at the time. And I said, mate, like I said, it's nothing personal. All I was doing was telling the truth. He goes, now that I've spent time with you and now I've looked at it through a new lens, I can see it in new light. But at the time, I guess I was naive. And I said, we all are, man. We can be very single-minded as human beings when we get into that stage of thinking or that defense. And I know that it came from a good place. Like you love the dog and you were very scared of what was happening to you. And that's why I opened my books to you and said, I can represent you in a training capacity and fix the behavior and fix what's going wrong and help you improve this to a situation where we can then go back and say, hey, this guy is what you would expect from a responsible community member. And the council were impressed about that. So, you know, we got him he went, you know, straight to a dangerous dog order, and we got him down to, I think he had to sit with a nuisance for a period of time, and then the dog passed away. But he enjoyed his dog. He used to come to training regularly. The dog was fine down at training. His skills and knowledge and understanding and his practical and pragmatic handling of the dog, they accelerated because he actually used to make an effort. And you were saying something in last week's episode when we were talking to Birdie, when you said people come to you and say, what should I do? And you say anything, just do something, start. And that I laughed a lot at that. And I was thinking about that during the week. I don't know, I was doing something and I thought, how true are those words? You know, like it's the journey of 1,000 miles. Just take the footstep, dude. You're not going to get to, you know, that northern point if you don't actually take the first couple of footsteps that you just need to know. Just take the footsteps. You know, like just get out and do something. Just start, make something happen. And that's what I said to this guy years ago. This was in Victoria, but this is what I said to this guy. I said, I'm so proud of you, man. Look how far you've come. Like you've done amazing stuff with the dog. To think that we were on other sides of the fence, like I was representing council against you, and now I'm working with you because you dropped your pride, you dropped your ego. You didn't see it as a personal attack. You saw it as an opportunity to get better, to improve, to do something about that. I've got to flip this back into my cautious scorning of people who just get out there and have a go and think, I'm just going to dip my toe in the water and just have a go with dangerous dog work. And
well, we can now because they understand the significance of the situation. So now where's the problems lie?
The problems lie in, mate, that over the years I have and you have, and collectively with the greater community, we meet really good dog trainers who have imposter syndrome. They have imposter syndrome about their skills, their capability. And I've met some really fucking stellar trainers in my life. Even people that I've had the privilege of starting them in their journey, and I've watched them, you know, escalate, like they've grown outside that and they've gone out into the world and they've learned and they've come back and they've, you know, like I've watched them developing what they're doing and I've thought, oh my God, this person really is, you know, like they're one of the new generation of trainers who really has encompassed all of the skills and knowledge to become a world leader in what they're actually doing. And those people are the people that I think, I hope you're one of the ones that wants to dip your toe in it because you're the right person to go out and represent these people. And I've encouraged and I've pushed people a little bit and said, hey, would you be interested in doing this? And some people have said to me, hey, can I shadow you and have a look, or can we talk about it further? And I've said, yes, because you're the right sort of person to do this. Where there've been other people that they don't ask you, they just go out and do it. And it's not that they have to ask my permission. I'm not saying that. I wouldn't be ruthless enough or stupid enough to say that. What I'm saying is they just go and do it. They literally were sitting at the breakfast table one day. They got a packet of cornflakes. They shook it and there was a little wrapper inside and it says, congratulations, you can go out and start assessing dangerous dogs. And that's, you know, that's fundamentally how they fucking start, along the lines of that, because I don't know who they are or where they came from, but mate, their advice is reckless. It's ruthless and it's reckless and it's terrible and it's dangerous. And what they're doing is giving people false hope and really bad advice. They've been thrown to the wolves. The clients with the dogs are being thrown to the wolves at that time. That's what's really scary. And that's what's, you know, I think as a community, we need to encourage the people that are doing that to upskill themselves to learn. If they want to do it, just upskill. I'm not saying you can't do it. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying just learn to do it. Go and work with people who can show you how to do it better. If it's something that's really interesting to you, I said to somebody the other day, what's the difference between you and a brain surgeon? And they said, I don't know, where are you going with this? And I said, education. That's what it is. It's somebody who went and got the education and learned and incrementally went through the stages, had the desire to do it, the schooling, the education, the mentoring, watching people in theatre over, assisting, standing there holding the tools, watching, and then finally getting their opportunity to do a low-level job into, over years, a medium-level job, into high-risk situations, into being their own person on the job. That's the difference. And that's what you need to do through your scholastic period is learn, get the education, upskill yourself, have the passion, have the decency, I think is the point that I'm trying to drive here, is have the decency to be the right advocate for this type of job, because there is so much on the line here, and misrepresenting these people is truly criminal, and you'll get away with it scot-free. These people go and sit in their beds and they sleep like a baby. They're just so naive to what's going on. They have no inkling that what they've done was gone into the place like a fucking wrecking ball and punched holes in the wall and just walked out and left everything in a worse situation than what it was. In some of the situations where clients have shown me what's actually happened, I thought, oh, you're actually in a worse place now. They've basically come in and taken a massive shit in your living room and just walked out and left you with it.
So even beyond the dog training, like people can worsen the situation significantly by the wrong interactions with counsel or not addressing the direction of the order. Like I think that's one of the things of legal stuff as well. Like if you don't understand, even legal writing is interesting in that, like when someone, like if someone says these are the 3 issues and you go, yeah, cool, we fixed the problem. You got to define like issue 1 that you identified. This is our mitigation. Issue 2, this is our mitigation. We're just like, nah, dog's not dangerous. Like this isn't helping. This is not like there's ways that these forms have to be written. Like there's procedure to this shit and it's boring and it's fucking like nothing fun about it, but it's the only way to get through.
The reports that I'm doing are 4 to 5 pages of going through the step-by-step process and addressing the issue that counsel has raised, and then leaving it open at the end to say, contact me for further information or for footage. Like I've taken footage of the interaction between myself and my client. If you want to pursue anything further, I have footage available that you can see to establish a credible line of what we've actually been doing here. And when it gets to a stage, as I confess to people, I'm not a lawyer. I do not offer legal advice. I offer specialist advice. That's what I do. I offer you the ability to rehabilitate and to understand what's actually happening. I'm stage 1. You know, like if we need to take the next stage, here's a group of creditable legal representatives who will actually act on your behalf as your lawyer. If required, I can work with them as a subject matter expert to provide my findings and what we are going to do. Because sometimes it will go to court and sometimes it will come back and saying, okay, you're now under the mentorship of Glenn. You need to go and make sure that you're seeing him once a week and there's being a follow-up. And, you know, it might be required that every month we need to send a report to counsel saying, here's the footage, here's what we're doing. And they can review that footage and saying, great, you're on track, or could you do this, or that's not exactly what it needs to be, or whatever it might be. And it's just making sure that we can have those open lines of dialogue between all of us where the communication is happening and the results are happening as well. And we're satisfying the need that needs to be satisfied. So, you know, fundamentally, that's one of the things that once a process goes legal, you need to satisfy the people in the right channels that you're meeting the criteria that's required of you. So there's no way around that, you know, like you can't backdoor that. And this is where you must make sure that the person that you're speaking with or the person that you're dealing with has a fundamental understanding of that, and they stay in their lane as well. I repeat and I repeat and I repeat. I repeat this to the client. I repeat it to everybody listening to this. I'm not a lawyer. I don't have any legal training. I don't offer any legal advice to people. That's when I pair up with a lawyer where I say, here is the person. I will stay in my lane. I will offer you expert advice in training and behavior.
Dog side.
Side of it. That's where I start and I stop. Anything outside that, I'm going to refer you to the right type of person to go and do that. And please, people out there, if you're considering doing this, find a reputable person, pay them for their time and say, I want to learn from you. I want to do this with you where I can learn to become that person, because that's the least you could do for your community. It's not for me. It horrifies me and it terrifies me. And in some cases, it disgusts me when I see people who are throwing caution to the wind and they're misrepresenting their community by saying I'm something when they're completely not. It's like a Walter Mitty sort of
faking
persona. Yeah, where you're faking who you are and you're living in a fantasy world and pretending. Now, again, please hear me when I say I don't want anybody to hear this, and good people that I know and good people that I don't know, if you have the capability, I don't want you to get imposter syndrome. I don't want you to shrivel back in your corner and say, oh, I don't want to do this. I'm too scared. The only thing that's stopping you is education. That's the only thing. That's the line. That's all you have to do, is you just need to make sure that somebody who's doing something that you would like to go into, that they then give you an endorsement and saying, yeah, you're good at this. You have a talent for this. Like, you have a very professional approach. And if you are representing somebody, the advice that they would get off you and the service that they would obtain from you is very professional. I've done that before. I've had to sit with people for many, 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 many hours before people would turn around and say to me, mate, you're ready. You can do this. I've seen you do it with me, and I've actually sat in the co-pilot chair and watched you pilot. So go ahead, do it. You're good enough. That's all you need to kickstart your career and doing something that's very fulfilling and very rewarding. Because for me, it is rewarding. It's very rewarding when I help people. I would say 99% of the people, men, women who I'm representing, are in my office crying their eyes out. The emotion side of it is fine. Like, if people need to come in and relieve themselves of some big feelings, go for it. Do that. There's a lot of upheaval going on in your life right now. As part of that package, you need to be compassionate to what they're going through. Even if they're somewhat the bad guy, you still need to be a good listener and be attentive to what's going on and know when to say what you need to say. Like I said, there's been times where I've chastised people and I've sat down and had some very, very strong words with them about their responsibility to the community and to themselves and to the fucking dog, where I'm literally laying down the law to them and saying, even though I'm not representing law, I'm saying to them, you're misdiagnosing your responsibilities of being a community member with a dog, even as a dog owner. Like, you've completely misrepresented yourself in your capacity. But good news, it can be fixed. You've come to me. That's the first step. You've come to another trainer that I know he or she is a terrific trainer. I know that person will do you justice. They will give you the answers that you are so desperately seeking. This is a great person, but you must follow what they're doing in order to see change, in order to see progress. This person can give it to you, but you've got to do what they ask you to do. And you've got to check in with them regularly, and you've got to understand that you'll have successes and you'll have setbacks. Like, this is a normal stage of everything that you're going to do in your life. But just check in, just have the communication.
Perfect.
Yes.
Well, rant done. All good points. I agree with you entirely, mate. I think that it's, like I say, it's not something I do because I'm not an expert in it. I haven't invested the time and energy to get the legal side of it. So it's a referral for me. I don't take that shit on.
I never see myself as an expert in it. I just see myself who's compassionate, and I get results for my clients. So, the only people who can clarify me as an expert are the people who are my clients. I consider that the endorsement that I need. Like, if people are coming back to me and saying, yep, you're a fucking expert, mate, then that's the endorsement. I get it. I get it from results, not from just pinning a little label on my chest and saying I'm a fucking expert. It
not
should always
staring in the mirror, shouting affirmations at yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it should be result based. It should be like a consideration of your peers and the results that you get in the industry.
All right. Well, I reckon that's a place to leave it. That's it. Another episode, Canine Paradigm. If you like what you hear, like, rate, share, subscribe. Do it through whatever subscription service you download us from. Then go somewhere else. Do it there.
Tell a friend.
We got to harp on.
Tell two friends. Why not?
We do have to harp on. That's like the signal you can send to the algorithm. Podcasts are weird. We haven't gone to like video or anything like that. So the way it works is the actual platform that you listen to the podcast on has no idea whether you actually listened to it. All it knows is that you downloaded it. So that by leaving a like or review on whatever platform you listen to actually sends a signal to like, oh yeah, this person actually likes this, listens to it. We should pump it out to other people. So by doing that, you're helping us spread the message of the show. Of course, you could just spread the message of the show directly. Like I say, the best way to do that is to put your AirPod directly into somebody else's ear. And when the fight ensues, at the back end of the fight, when you guys make up, be like, yeah, but it's really good. You should continue listening to it. Or just the boombox over your shoulder as you walk down the street. JBL speaker, just blaring the Canine Paradigm nonstop all the time. If you want to support us, the best way to do that is to jump into Patreon. A few bucks a month gets you a giant backlog of information. We started this episode talking about how I just spoke at that conference of council rangers. I am going to today edit down that, just cut off the front and the back of it and put a color grade on it and whack it into Patreon. So you'll be able to watch that in Patreon. You'll be able to see what I had to say when they gave me 200 council rangers held hostage for 2 hours and told me I could talk about anything I want. You can see what I spoke about with them. And you could pay as much as you want on Patreon. You could pay as much or as little as you like. You support us in any way you like. We really appreciate everything that everybody gives. Another way to support the show is get yourself some t-shirts or some wall tapestries. You jump into Springs, links in the show notes there. You can just order that stuff, gets delivered directly to you, and they send us a couple bucks for every shirt you buy, which is really cool. If you want to get in contact with us, the very best way to do that is to jump into the Facebook discussion group. That's where it's the coolest conversations in dog training happening on Facebook. Everybody's polite and civil in there. It's one of the last places where you can actually ask questions without being berated.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it is. It's a very good group. And if you want to get in touch with us directly, shoot us an email. We are info@thecanineparadigm.com. Hope your dog lives forever. Goodbye.
Bye, friends.
Oh,